Hello and welcome to After the Bell 43 Years of Teaching Wisdom. My name is Rowan Healy, and after 43 years of teaching in Queensland secondary schools, I am preparing to retire. This podcast is an opportunity for me to share some of the lessons, stories, and experiences I have gathered throughout my career. In the first episode, I reflected on what 43 years of teaching taught me. Today, I would like to speak directly to beginning teachers, and perhaps also to experienced teachers who remember just how demanding their first year was. The message I want to share is simple. Your first year does not define you. If you are finding your first year difficult, that does not mean you chose the wrong profession. It does not mean you are failing, and it certainly does not mean you cannot become an excellent teacher. It simply means that you are learning to do one of the most complicated jobs there is. Many beginning teachers enter the profession with enthusiasm, fresh ideas, and a genuine desire to make a difference. Then the school year begins. Suddenly you are responsible for lesson planning, classroom management, assessment, marking, meetings, emails, playground duties, professional development, parent communication, and a seemingly endless collection of administrative tasks. At the same time, you are learning the school's systems, policies, routines, and expectations. You are trying to remember the names of more than 100 students, while also learning which printer works, where to find resources, and who to contact when something goes wrong. Teaching can look quite manageable from the outside. After all, most people have spent many years watching teachers work. But watching someone teach and being responsible for a classroom are very different experiences. In your first year, almost everything requires conscious thought. Experienced teachers have developed routines, resources, and instinct over many years. A beginning teacher is often building all three at once. That is exhausting. One of the traps beginning teachers can fall into is comparing themselves with experienced colleagues. You may see another teacher walk into a classroom with minimal notes, settle the students quickly, and respond calmly to every unexpected situation. It can appear effortless. What you do not see are the years of experience behind that performance. You do not see the lessons that failed, the difficult classes, the mistakes, or the countless adjustments that helped that teacher develop their judgment. Experience gives teachers a mental library of situations. An experienced teacher may recognise that a class is becoming unsettled before the disruption becomes obvious. They may know when to continue, when to change direction, and when to abandon an activity altogether. Those instincts are not evidence of natural talent. They are usually the result of time, reflection, and many imperfect lessons. Do not compare the beginning of your career with the middle or end of someone else's. Your first year will contain mistakes. You may give instructions that confuse everyone. You may plan too much work for one lesson and far too little for the next. You may spend hours creating a beautiful resource that students complete in 10 minutes. You may respond too firmly to a minor issue or not firmly enough to a significant one. You may forget a meeting, misplace a worksheet, or discover that the technology you planned to use has stopped working at exactly the wrong moment. These moments can feel enormous when you're a beginning teacher, but they are not the final judgment on your ability. A mistake becomes valuable when you reflect on it. Ask yourself, what happened? Why did it happen? What could I change next time? And is there someone I can ask for advice? Reflection should help you improve. It should not become an excuse to punish yourself. There is a significant difference between saying, that lesson did not work, and saying, I'm not a good teacher. The first statement identifies a problem you can address. The second turns one difficult experience into a judgment about your identity. Be careful not to confuse the two. In your first year, Concentrate on establishing simple and dependable routines. Students should know how they enter the room, where they find their work, what they need to do to begin, and what happens when they need assistance. They should also understand how the lesson ends and what is expected before they leave. Routines may not sound exciting, but they create stability. When students know what to expect, the classroom becomes calmer. When the classroom is calmer, both the teacher and the students can focus more effectively on learning. You do not need an elaborate behaviour management system with dozens of rules. I generally say that I'm looking for two things from students: courtesy and respect. If I get them from the students, I'll return them in kind. So begin with a small number of clear expectations. Explain them, model them, and apply them consistently. Do not make threats you cannot or will not carry out. A calm, predictable response is usually more effective than a dramatic one. You are not trying to win a confrontation. You are trying to create a classroom in which everyone can learn. Another important lesson is that you do not have to create everything yourself. Beginning teachers sometimes believe every worksheet, presentation, and activity needs to be original. It does not. Use the resources available in your school. Ask colleagues what has worked for them. Adapt existing materials to suit your students. Creating a new resource can be worthwhile when there is a clear need, but spending 3 hours making a worksheet look perfect is rarely sustainable. Your students need a teacher who is prepared, patient, and present. They do not need every slide to contain perfect graphics and animations. Learn to recognise the difference between work that genuinely improves student learning and work that simply makes you busier. Good enough for tomorrow is sometimes a perfectly responsible professional decision. It is also important to ask for help. This can be difficult because beginning teachers often feel they need to prove that they deserve to be there. But asking for help is not a sign of incompetence. It's a part of becoming competent. If you are concerned about a student, speak to the appropriate colleague. If a class is difficult to manage, ask an experienced teacher to observe you or to help you develop a strategy. If you do not understand an assessment process or school procedure, ask before the deadline arrives. Most experienced teachers remember what it was like to begin. Many will be pleased that you trusted them enough to ask. Try to find one or two colleagues who are calm, practical, and supportive. You do not need advice from everyone. Sometimes too many opinions can make a situation more confusing. Find people whose judgment you trust and who help you see problems clearly. During your first year, you may also receive criticism or difficult feedback. Some feedback will be useful. Some will be poorly expressed. Occasionally, it may be unfair. Try to separate the way feedback is delivered from any useful information it contains. Ask yourself whether there is something specific you can act upon. Perhaps your instructions need to be shorter. Perhaps students need more time to practice. Perhaps your expectations need to be communicated more clearly. Take what helps you to improve. Seek clarification when necessary, and try not to allow one person's opinion to define your entire professional identity. A teacher can have a difficult lesson, a difficult class, or even a difficult term, and still become an outstanding educator. One of the most important things you can do in your first year is notice the small successes. Beginning teachers often remember every problem and overlook everything that went well. At the end of the week, take a moment to identify one success. Perhaps a student who rarely participates answered a question. Perhaps a lesson ran more smoothly than the previous one. Perhaps you handled a difficult conversation calmly. Perhaps a student asked for your help because they trusted you. These moments matter. Growth in teaching is often gradual. You may not notice it from one day to the next, but over several months you will begin to see changes. The instructions become clearer. The routines become stronger. The students' names come more easily. You recover from difficult lessons more quickly, and eventually situations that once felt overwhelming become manageable. You must also give yourself permission to have a life outside school. Teaching can expand to fill every available hour if you allow it. There'll always be another lesson to improve, another email to answer, or another set of books to mark. Set reasonable limits where you can. Choose a time to stop working. Protect some part of your weekend. Continue to do the activities that help you feel like yourself. You are a teacher, but you're not only a teacher. Looking after your health, relationships, and interests will help you become more sustainable in the classroom. You do not have to sacrifice your entire life to prove that you care about your students. If I could sit down with a teacher at the end of a difficult first week, first term, or first year, I would say this: you are not expected to know everything yet. You're allowed to be learning. You're allowed to ask questions. You're allowed to make mistakes. You're allowed to have difficult days. The goal of your first year is not to become the finished version of yourself as a teacher. The goal is to keep learning, keep reflecting, and keep taking the next manageable step. Your first year is one chapter in a much longer story. It may be challenging, it may contain moments of doubt, but it can also provide the foundations for a rewarding and meaningful career. Before we finish, here are 5 thoughts I would like beginning teachers to take into the coming week. First, do not compare yourself with someone who has had 20 years to develop their craft. Second, establish simple routines and apply them consistently. Third, ask for help before a manageable problem becomes an overwhelming one. Fourth, notice your progress, not only your mistakes. And finally, remember that a difficult day does not make you a bad teacher. Thank you for joining me in this episode of After the Bell, 43 Years of Teaching Wisdom. If you know a beginning teacher who may need some encouragement, please consider sharing this episode with them. And if you are that beginning teacher, I hope you remember this: your students do not need you to be perfect. They need you to be prepared to learn, willing to care, and courageous enough to return tomorrow and try again. Your first year does not define you, but it may be the beginning of something extraordinary. Until next time, take care of yourself, look after your colleagues, and remember that the work you do matters, even on the days when it may not feel that way. You have been listening to After the Bell, 43 Years of Teaching Wisdom. Thank you for listening, and I will see you after the bell.